All right, so today we're going to be talking about our FSC week topic, concern for the poor and social justice, and I'm here with Mr. Zanneo, Mr. Norman, and Mr. Schugsta. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us, Bryn.
Happy to be here.
So my first question for you guys is, what does today's FSC week topic, concern for the poor and social justice, mean to you?
Well, I think that this topic of concern for the poor and social justice drives right to the heart of the mission of LaSalle and what we might call Lasallian schools, and why De La Salle founded the Christian schools. I mean, if our learning simply stops at the classroom, then there's a big problem with that. And the fact that we can take what we learn and then go out into our communities and make a difference and I like to think of it not just serving the poor, but maybe being in solidarity with other people. We've been talking in morality class about this idea of kinship and seeing other people as people who are related to us as brothers and sisters in Christ. And I think that's a big part of our service to the poor and working for justice in the world, whether it be any type of justice that we might talk about.
I think for me, there's so much going on in the world right now that this is a topic that, I think we have to look further at with all the injustice going on around us, especially with, social media, things like that. So I think the two things that jump back to me are this idea of quality of education, equality of education, giving access to everybody to have some kind of education, and the healthcare side of it. So to piggyback off Mr. Schugsta, just giving those who are a little less fortunate an opportunity to become educated, because I think a lot of those who fall under this, impoverished and poverty and things like that, and those who need help don't have access to a quality education, and in turn, maybe don't have access to a great healthcare situation. So I think just being cognizant of what we can do as a community and as individuals through what we learn through the mission of LaSalle, kind of like Mr. Schugsta said, and use that to help raise awareness for things like that.
And for me, I think a big part of LaSalle and being a student at LaSalle or a teacher at LaSalle is that we do our best to educate the whole person. And there's many things we can learn in the classroom, but I think there's so many more things we can learn on a weekly basis through service or summer service programs. I've been lucky enough to work with Mr. Schugsta and Mr. Zanneo in New Orleans on some other trips in Philadelphia, et cetera. And I think the fact that some of our students and some of us we don't have it that bad, and seeing what other people are dealing with. And my favorite thing is being a volunteer on those trips and seeing students learn, hey, I have it pretty well, and other people are dealing with all these different things that I didn't even know were problems. So that's the main thing about LaSalle to me, is teaching the whole person.
Right, and I think one thing also that jumps out to me is that LaSalle always says they don't require service, and they don't require service, and yet pretty much everyone still participates in service. So I think that speaks a lot about this topic. So my next question is, how does leave to serve tie in with this topic?
Well, I think this idea of leave to serve, as I mentioned before, really is what our Christian education is all about. And certainly we're blessed to have such a wonderful community here at LaSalle and such high achieving students academically. But as Mr. Norman said, we're trying to educate the whole person, so that the idea is that what you get here, what you learn here at LaSalle, is not just to prepare you for the next step of your academic career, but it's about forming you as a Christian gentleman, and that such a pivotal part of being a Christian gentleman is going and then serving others.
I think too, a lot of what we do here at LaSalle, it's contagious. Like when you see your friends and everybody going out and getting involved in service, you want to go do it as well. And I think just it spreads like wildfire in a great way. And I think just the way that we do things here, it's easy to do it when you're here. But if you think about some of our alumni who come back and give talks to our faculty and things like that, like we have leaders out in the community that, we hope as educators and as a school, we help, give them a small part of kind of how they got there. And they learned how to become leaders and become servants and help those in need through their education here. And they go out in the community and become, leaders and pillars that we bring back to talk to us, to now educate us more about things that they're getting involved in. So it kind of becomes full circle, which I think is the great community aspect of this place.
And when I think of Lead to Serve, coming in as an outsider, I wasn't raised Catholic, and I'm from a very different area of the state. And when I heard Lead to Serve, I think that was the best way for me to get connected to Jean-Baptiste de LaSalle and to find some Lasallian values, because I'd never had a LaSalle class. So the fact that we can talk about Lead to Serve, and I was able to work with other students and see how that all ties into social justice and to Lasallian charism. Just Lead to Serve was the easiest way for me to get involved and to see a part of him that was really, I think, one of the most important things.
Right, yeah. I mean, we see the Leave to Serve sign every day leaving the building, but I think it's just so much more than a sign. It's really embedded in everything we do here. So my third question is, how have you personally lived the mission of concern for the poor during your time at LaSalle?
So for myself, I having been able to do some of the service projects and trips. In fact, just a couple of years ago, I was privileged to go to New Orleans with Mr. Zanneo and Mr. Norman, and been on some of the urban immersion trips with them. I think one of the other things that I've been trying to be more cognizant of is that this idea of concern for others and concern for justice can really start at home. And I've been thinking about, what are ways at school that I can do a better job of living that. So whether it simply means going out of my way to ask somebody how they're doing, or to be supportive of another person, or whether even just in the classroom we're taking some time to talk about important issues that relate to justice. I think those are some different ways that I'm trying to challenge myself to kind of live this out.
And I think for me as a math teacher, yes, it's a little hard to integrate it directly into my curriculum and some of my real world problems and things like that. But to piggyback off Mr. Schugsta, just having those meaningful conversations with guys, whether it's on service trips, Kairos, I try to make it a point personally to every year get involved in one or two things that push me outside of my comfort zone, so I can in turn help push some students and maybe some other faculty outside their comfort zones. And I think it's easy for us when we need help with something or we're struggling with something, we kind of know where to go. But there's so many people out there who are struggling with something and have no idea where to go. And us going out into the community, just trying to help them find their feet. Like I said earlier, it's kind of contagious and should help, want to get everybody involved. Some of our sports teams, I help coach tennis and basketball, and, we try to get involved in community service every year. So it goes beyond just the general population of the school. We try to get everybody involved, and it's all voluntary, which is the beautiful thing about what we do. And, it's just very contagious, and, more and more faculty get involved, more and more students get involved, and it just kind of builds up our entire program. But I think, most faculty try to make it a point to try to do something each year to help promote more of this.
Yeah, for me, summer services was really a key for, I think, me opening up. I'm really a quieter person. It takes me a long time to get to know me. I'm pretty open in the classroom, but for adults, it's kind of hard for me to talk to people sometimes. So I remember it was probably 12 years ago, maybe 15, that I went on my first trip to Appalachia. And when you're with other students and faculty for 24 hours a day, it's hard to not open up. And to see, the best part of me was like creating relationships outside of the classroom, because you see what kids are dealing with, you see what they experience real time. So, I mean, I've been on trips to Appalachia, to Arizona, to New Orleans with Mr. Zanneo, Mr. Schugsta, so many other teachers, Philadelphia on urban immersion, and St. Lucia. And really, St. Lucia is one of the most powerful trips to me, because one of the things we do is just, we constantly are walking around the community, and you see how important community is. And I've tried to bring that back to LaSalle as much as possible, because LaSalle is such a large place with almost 1,100 students and 100 faculty. And I've gone, even with masks this year, I've gone above and beyond trying to talk to as many students in the hall as I can, even if I've never seen them. But when you're in St. Lucia and you see the community around you, and you go and rebuild a house is simply like 8 walls, and it takes you 2 days to rebuild it completely. And then you realize that we're not all alone. We have different community, but we also don't have it so bad. And there's so many other places in the world that we can affect, and hopefully that as students on these trips, we're able to open up their eyes and to see some of those things.
All right, yeah, awesome. So those are all the questions I have. Thank you guys for hopping on here and talking about our topic for today, concern for the poor and social justice.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
All right, so